First, I'm going to show you how to make the 3 metal triangle pieces. You'll need to print and cut out the pattern that I've provided you, a sheet of 20 gauge brass, and rubber cement. To adhere the pattern to the metal, you'll paint the rubber cement onto both the brass and the back of the paper pattern. Wait for it to dry and then place the pattern pieces onto the metal. Next, you'll need to cut the pieces out. For the exterior lines, I'm using a Beverly shear. First, I do a rough cut, then go back and cut directly on the line. So here I'm cutting the shape out roughly, and then I'm going back to do the fine cut. Now that you have the exterior cuts done, you'll need to do the interior cuts. There are 3 notches on the outside and the interior triangle. For this, you'll need a jeweler's saw. For the notches, you can just start cutting into the metal. But for the interior triangle, you'll need to drill a hole first and thread the saw blade through the hole to cut out the shape. To drill a hole, you'll first need to make a mark to get the hole started. To do that, you'll need a steel block, a center punch, and a chasing hammer. To make the mark, just place the center punch inside the area you want to cut out and hammer once lightly. Now that you have made the mark, you can easily drill a hole using a drill press or a flex shaft to cut out the interior piece. Repeat these steps for all 3 triangle pieces. The next step is to score the brass on the dotted lines so you can fold the metal into 3-dimensional shapes. There are 3 lines that you'll need to score on each triangle piece. There are a number of ways to do this, and I'm going to show you 2 different ways. The first way is with hand tools. You'll need a straight small hand saw to do the majority of the scoring, and a square file to shape the cuts into 90-degree grooves in the metal. You'll also need a C-clamp to keep the metal from moving around while you're scoring it. You'll need to keep the saw as flush with the metal as possible and directly on the dotted line. Continue to make cuts until you are 3/4 of the way through the metal. Then you'll use the square file to shape the groove into a 90-degree angle. Repeat this process on all 3 lines of all 3 triangle pieces. The second way to score the lines is with power tools. You'll need a separating disc with a flex shaft or a Dremel tool. You'll also need an extra sheet of metal to use as a guide. Clamp the guide over the triangle piece and line up the edge of the metal with the dotted line. Then you just cut along the line, again 3/4 of the way through. You may need to use a square file when you're finished to shape the groove into a 90-degree angle. Repeat this process on all 3 lines of all 3 triangle pieces. Once you've scored all the lines, you'll need to bevel the edges so that when you fold the edges up, you form a clean corner. You'll need to file them at about a 23-degree angle. To do this, you can use any type of flat file. I'm using the flat side of a half-round hand file. Once all the edges have been beveled, you can bend the sides up using a pair of pliers. You'll need to make sure that the corners meet. If they don't, you'll need to unfold the piece and file the areas that are causing the seam not to touch. Once your sides are folded and the seams are touching, you're ready to solder. To prepare the piece for soldering, you may need to bind the piece tightly with binding wire. To set the piece up for soldering, place it between two soldering bricks so you can heat it from underneath if needed. You'll also want to place your solder in all the seams. For the corners, place the solder at the top of the seam, and in the folded edges, place 3 to 4 pallions evenly spaced in each fold. Each triangle piece will have 6 seams that you'll want to secure with solder. When you've finished soldering the pieces, you'll want to sand and polish them using whatever finishing tools you normally use. Now you'll need to make the end caps for the cording. You'll need about a 6-inch length of 10 or 8 gauge brass wire. 8 gauge would be ideal, but 10 gauge is easier to find. With the flat side of a file, you'll need to file about a 1/4 inch of the end of the wire into a point. Once you have the shape roughed out with the file, you'll need to use a finishing tool to smooth out and polish the surface. Then with a jeweler's saw, you'll cut the 1/4 inch point off of the length of wire. Repeat this process 6 times. Now you're going to need to drill a hole in the end cap that's the same size as the cord. For the cord I used, a size 53 drill bit was needed. To mark the spot you need to drill, you can use a butt burr. You'll need to hold the end cap with a pair of pliers or some other type of clamp to do this. Then take the drill bit and drill a hole about 1/8 of an inch deep. Repeat this process for all 6 end caps. Now you're ready to assemble all the pieces. To thread the cord through the triangle pieces, you're going to need to figure out where to drill the holes. Place the triangles on a piece of paper and align them as they would be in the finished piece. Make one mark above the bottom triangle and one just to the side of that one, and make one mark beside the middle triangle. With a ruler, extend each mark into parallel lines. This will give you an idea of where the cords will go and where to drill the holes. Then replace the triangles over the lines. Using Sharpie, make a mark on the metal everywhere the lines intersect the sides of the triangle. Flip the triangles over and repeat the process so that there are symmetrical marks on each triangle piece. Now you're ready to drill the holes, but of course, you first need to center punch where you made the Sharpie marks. Use the edge of a bench pin to stabilize the triangle pieces. You'll need to drill the holes on the top of the triangle pieces straight through, but the holes on the sides need to be on a little bit of an angle so that the cord lays vertically as opposed to perpendicular to the side of the triangle. To do that, drill about 3/4 of the way through the piece, then angle the drill in the direction you want the hole to go until you get all the way through the metal. To remove the burr from the holes, use a drill bit that's several sizes up and twist it by hand. Cut 3 lengths of cord at about 55 inches long. This will give you more than enough cord and you'll be able to trim them to the desired length later on. Cut the ends at an angle so they are easier to thread through the holes. Use your pliers to push the cord through the holes. Start with the largest triangle and first thread one of the outer holes. Decide where you would like the first bead to be and tie a knot in the cord. Then thread the bead up to the knot and tie another knot on the other side of the bead to secure it in place. Repeat with one more bead and then thread the cord through the outer hole on the opposite side of the large triangle. Next, thread the second cord through the second hole and add one bead in the same way as before. Then thread the other end of the cord through the opposite side of the triangle. Repeat with the third cord, adding 3 beads. You can then thread the middle triangle through the 2 center cords and the small triangle through both ends of the middle cord. Then trim the cords to the desired length. The final step is to add the end caps. You'll want to cut the ends of the cord at an angle to make it easier to get them into the caps. To secure the caps to the cord, dip the cord in a very small amount of 5-minute epoxy. Wait for the glue to dry and the necklace will be complete.